You just lost a fight and your frontline died in seconds. Your tank had the right items and it looks completely fine on paper, but it died instantly anyway. It's not that your items were bad, it's that most players have no idea how tanking actually works. There's a formula behind tanking damage, and I'm gonna walk you through the biggest mistakes I see players make when building tanks. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you the one type of tank that ignores this formula completely. It's the most misbuilt unit in the game, and there's a good chance you've been doing it wrong every single set. Once you understand all this, you'll never watch your frontline melt again. So let's talk about why your tank actually dies. Every tank in TFT has one number that actually matters, and it's not the number on their health bar. It's their effective HP, EHP for short. Your effective HP is the real measure of how long your tank survives, and it comes from 3 sources multiplied together: your HP, your resists, and your durability. Each one of these is a separate bucket, and just like our damage formula, you need a combination of each of these to get your most effective HP. Let's go through this one by one in detail. HP is your foundation. It's the number everything else multiplies off of. And shields work the exact same way. Just think of them as bonus HP. The more HP you have, the more value you squeeze out of every single point of resistances and every single point of durability. It's always your starting point. Some good examples of HP items are Warmog's Armor, Sunfire Cape, and Spirit Visage. Next is resists. There are 2 types of resistances. Armor reduces physical damage, and magic resist reduces magic damage. Every 100 points of a resist doubles your EHP against that damage type. So if your tank has 1000 HP and 100 armor, they're effectively absorbing 2000 physical damage before they die. Now here's the catch. Your opponents should always be building Sunder and Shred, which cuts armor and magic resist by 30%. If they're not, they obviously haven't been watching my itemization videos and building dpei vis. So if you have 100 armor, Sunder brings you back down to 70 armor and you lose 30 armor total. If you have 300 armor on the other hand, Sunder brings you back down to 210 and you lose 90 armor. The more you stack of one resist, the more you hand back to your enemy for free if they have Sunder or Shred. And if you're stacking armor but ignoring magic resist, any AP carry can just walk straight through you anyway. So build your resistances based on your specific lobby, and as a general rule of thumb, don't have too much of one specific resist. Good example of resistance items are Bramble Vest for armor, Dragon's Claw for magic resist, and Gargoyle Stoneplate is good for both. Now let's talk about durability. Durability is a damage reduction that multiplies on top of everything else in the formula. After your resists have done their job, durability takes whatever damage is left and reduces it again, regardless of whether the damage is physical or magical. One thing worth knowing is that durability stacks multiplicatively, not additively. So for example, if you have 10% durability, you're taking 90% of the original damage. But if we add another 10% durability on top of that, you're actually taking 81%, not 80% of the total damage. Each source reduces what's left, not the original number. So you can't ever really reach 100% durability and become unkillable, but it's a good stat regardless. Steadfast Heart and Spirit Visage are the main items in the game that offer durability. Now let's talk about items in more detail. Most tank items already give you a good mix of stats across multiple buckets. For example, Bramble Vest gives you a lot of armor, but it also gives you some HP as well. Steadfast Heart primarily gives you durability, but it also gives you armor and HP. Riot tweaks these numbers very often, so it's worth reading the tooltips rather than just assuming you know exactly what an item does. And these items may change, but the formula never changes. Now here's where most players go wrong. If you slap 3 Bramble Vests on your tank, your armor bucket is going to be overflowing, but your HP, durability, and magic resist are all starving. Sunder just hands all that armor back to the enemy anyway. And if you slap 3 Warmogs on your main tank, your HP is massive, but they're multiplying nothing. It's the same mistake, just with another bucket. The sweet spot is always somewhere in the middle, and that's where your tank traits tell you where to start, and that's where we're gonna go next. So now let's look at how this actually plays out with real tank traits that exist in every set in TFT. So let's start with HP traits like Bruisers. Bruisers get bonus HP from their trait, so your HP bucket already has a head start in that department. HP items are fine here, but they're actually your lowest priority since your trait is already covering it. What you want is resist and durability to multiply off all that HP that you have from Bruiser. So Bramble Vest, Steadfast Heart, and Spirit Visage would be great items. Now let's look at some augment choices that you might see in a real game. Lineup gives your tanks resistances, Big Friend gives durability, and Boxing Lessons gives HP. So let's take a second to think about which augment would be best if I'm running a Bruiser frontline. Boxing Lessons give more HP, which would synergize with Bruiser, but that's actually the weakest pick here since your trait already handles that. Lineup fills your empty resist bucket, Big Friend fills your durability bucket, and here's the bonus. Big Friend requires a unit above 1750 HP to trigger, so your Bruisers are going to hit that threshold super easily. So not only does it fill a weak bucket, but your HP lead actually makes the augment stronger. So now let's talk about resist traits like Defenders, Bastions, and Sentinels. These show up every single set just under a different name, but they always do the same thing. They give your tanks a ton of armor and magic resist. So remember, we don't want to give the enemy free value from Sunder and Shred. So to build strong front lines with these resist traits, what we actually want is HP and durability. Spirit Visage is a perfect item here since it gives us both HP and durability. Now let's look at the same augments as before. Lineup is the worst choice here because we already have a ton of armor and MR already, and that's what our trait already gives us, and we don't need more of that. Instead, Big Friend gives us durability and Boxing Lessons gives us HP, so those would both be great picks for our resist heavy frontline. Both of those fill buckets we actually need. So now let's talk about durability traits like Juggernauts or Watchers, which exists in a lot of sets in TFT. These traits give your tanks durability, so what you actually want to complement with this is HP and resist to round out the formula. So something like Warmogs plus Bramble Vest or Dragon's Claw are really good complements. Now let's talk about augments for a Juggernaut frontline. Big Friend gives you more durability, and that's a bucket you already have a ton of, so that's the worst pick here. Whereas Lineup fills up your resist bucket and Boxing Lessons fills up your HP bucket. Both of those are exactly what you need, so those are great options. That's the formula. Simply put, build what your tank doesn't already inherently have and fill out your weak buckets. That's what makes a tank unkillable. But I told you at the start, there's one type of tank where none of this applies, and here it is. So everything we've covered so far assumes your tank survives by absorbing damage. But what if I told you there's another way to stop taking damage altogether? Enter CC tanks. If your frontliner has a hard CC ability, a stun or knockup, every second the enemy team spends locked down is a second they aren't attacking. That's perfect tanking. Every set has units like this. Take Swain in set 16, for example. His ability stuns the largest group of nearby enemies for almost 2 seconds. If he's casting, he's pausing the entire team's damage, and that's huge. The way you build around CC tanks is by making them cast faster. So Protector's Vow, Adaptive Helm, and Spirit Visage all give Swain a faster cast so that he can CC the enemy team faster and buy time for your team to win the fight. The goal is simple. Give your CC tank enough to survive and cast. That's it. You don't need him to be unkillable. You need them to keep stunning. Here's the thing though. A CC tank is never your main tank. Your main tank still needs the full formula. HP, resist, and durability, because someone actually has to absorb the damage that your CC tank isn't stopping. The CC tank buys time. The real tank eats the hits. Don't put your tank items on the unit whose job it is to interrupt the fight, and don't put mana items on the unit whose job is to survive. So now you know how tanking actually works. Your tank dies because you are stacking the wrong bucket. Know what your tank trait already covers and build around what it doesn't have. If your frontliner is a CC tank, Give it mana, not your HP, resist, and durability items. Save those for your main tank. Do this and your frontline stops melting and starts taking over. If you're ready to actually start climbing, head over to tftgameplan.com. dpei's Disciples is my monthly coaching membership, and it gives you full access to my daily meta reads, weekly live Q&As, personalized feedback with unlimited spot reviews, and full access to my library of past coaching sessions, all for $15 a month. One-on-one coaching is also available if you want to improve even faster. Links are in the description below. And as always, thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.